Some stories don't begin with lightning. They start quietly, with a storm building inside your chest. I was standing in the principal's office, hands shaking, heart pounding, trying to keep my tears hidden. Across the desk sat two polished, picture-perfect parents, looking at me as if I was something they'd stepped on. Their faces were all smug smiles and silent judgment. To them, I wasn't a mother defending her child. I was a broken woman, single, struggling, and easy to blame. But what they didn't know was that with one phone call, I could bring down the little empire of arrogance they'd built. If you've ever been made to feel small, unloved, or unworthy, this story is for you, because what comes next isn't about shame, it's about strength. My name is Eva Collins, and I'm 40 years old. For most of my life, I built invisible walls to keep pain out and love away. I once believed that was power. Now I know it was fear disguised as control. My first lesson in heartbreak came from my father, David Collins. I was 15 when I found my mother, Lena, sitting at the kitchen table, crying over proof of his affair. He'd vanished without a trace, traded us for someone younger, leaving behind unpaid bills and empty promises. That's when I learned the cruel truth. Some love comes with an expiration date. Mom worked 3 jobs to keep us alive, endless shifts, cheap meals, hand-me-down clothes. I learned early that silence could be stronger than begging. Dignity became our only luxury. When I turned 18, Mom remarried. His name was Robert Hayes. I hated him immediately, not because he was cruel, but because he was kind. He was calm, generous, and successful, a real estate man who owned half of Manchester. I didn't trust men like that. I thought kindness always came with a hidden price. So, I kept my distance, refused his gifts, his help, his affection. When he offered to pay for my college, I turned him down. I chose debt over dependence. I thought walking away made me strong. By 20, I left home and never looked back. I worked in cafes, serving coffee to strangers who barely saw me. That's where I met Daniel, a 27-year-old graphic designer, chasing dreams that never seemed to land. I was 25, tired, broke, but still foolish enough to believe in love. He noticed me. He laughed with me. He made life feel softer. 6 months later, we moved in together. 2 years after that, I found out I was pregnant. For a moment, I thought the universe had finally chosen to be kind. At first, Daniel was thrilled. He talked about painting the nursery and choosing baby names. But hope fades fast. As my belly grew, his affection shrank. Nights out stretched longer. Texts came slower. Then I found the messages, someone else's name glowing on his phone. When I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He just said, "You've changed, Eva. You're no fun anymore." He packed his things and left, like my father, without a trace. 6 weeks later, my daughter Sophie came into this world. Daniel never came back. Never called, never sent a penny, just gone. That was my second lesson. Every man eventually leaves, so I stopped expecting anyone to stay. Robert, my stepfather, tried to reach out for years. He sent cards, left messages, even showed up at birthdays. I ignored him all. I thought being alone meant being in control. But that illusion shattered the day my daughter came home with tears streaking her cheeks. Sophie was 10, shy, artistic, and too gentle for the cruel world of children. Her classmate, Hannah Parker, had rich parents who thought money meant morals. Hannah turned cruelty into a sport, calling Sophie names, mocking her for not having a father. "You don't have a dad because your mom's a bad woman," she'd say. "No one wants you." Sophie tried to be brave, but pain has limits. When Hannah tore apart her art project, a butterfly sculpture Sophie had spent weeks on, my daughter snapped. She pushed her. Hannah fell, scraped her knee, and ran home crying. The next morning, I got the call. "Ms. Collins, we need to speak immediately," said Principal Peterson. When I arrived, the room was thick with judgment. Principal Peterson sat behind his desk, looking nervous. Beside him were Edward and Grace Parker, Hannah's parents, dressed for a courtroom, not a school meeting. Grace smiled coldly. "Your daughter attacked mine," she said. I explained everything, the weeks of bullying, the messages, the humiliation. I even showed proof on my phone. Grace cut me off sharply. "Children without structure act out, Ms. Collins. No father, no guidance. Some women just aren't built for motherhood." Her words hit like bullets. Edward slid a paper across the desk. "Sign this," he said. "A statement admitting that your unstable home caused Sophie's aggression. We'll keep this off her record if you cooperate." I stared at it, an apology for crimes I didn't commit. You want me to say I'm a bad mother? I whispered. Principal Peterson cleared his throat. Until you sign and show remorse, Sophie will remain suspended. I left that office numb, not just angry, broken. They weren't punishing Sophie. They were punishing me for surviving alone. When I got home, Sophie was crying. Mom, she whispered, why doesn't my dad protect me? Is it because you're bad? That question tore me apart. I realized my silence had turned into weakness. I couldn't do this alone anymore. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my phone, and found the name I'd avoided for 22 years, Robert Hayes, my stepfather. My hands shook as I pressed call. He answered on the second ring. Eva, he said, his voice calm, older, but warm, and that's when everything began to change. Eva, tell me everything, Robert said, and I did. I told him about the bullying, the meeting, the humiliation. I told him how they called me an unfit mother and Sophie a problem child. He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was calm but sharp as ice. Eva, listen carefully. You haven't failed. They have. Do not sign anything. Don't speak to anyone. I'll handle this. Robert, I don't need your money, I started, but he cut me off. This isn't about money. This is about family. You and Sophie are my family, always have been. For the first time in years, I let someone stand beside me. The next morning, 9 a.m. sharp, a black car pulled up outside the school. Robert stepped out in a tailored suit, confidence radiating from every step. He wasn't just a man, he was a storm in silence. When we walked into Principal Peterson's office, the Parkers were already there, looking smug. That didn't last long. Good morning, Mr. Peterson, Robert said. The principal froze. Everyone in Manchester knew who Robert Hayes was, the man who donated millions to local schools, who sat on the education board. Mr. Hayes, Peterson stammered. I'm Sophie's grandfather, Robert said, and I believe there's been a misunderstanding about accountability. Grace Parker tried to keep her smile. We're just asking for an apology from Sophie. Discipline matters, Mr. Hayes. Robert leaned forward, his tone polite but deadly. Mrs. Parker, your daughter has been psychologically tormenting my granddaughter for weeks, mocking her for not having a father, destroying her. When Sophie defended herself, that wasn't violence. That was self-respect. Edward Parker tried to interrupt. With respect, Sophie pushed Mr. Parker, Robert said, voice like steel. Your daughter's behavior is documented, and your public comments about my daughter's parenting are defamatory. I suggest you choose your next words carefully. The room fell silent. Robert turned to the principal. Here's what will happen. Sophie will be reinstated immediately. The Parkers will issue a written apology to both Eva and Sophie, and their daughter will attend a bullying prevention program. If that doesn't happen today, I'll take this to the school board, the media, and my legal team. Peterson swallowed hard. Mr. Hayes, I'm sure we can resolve this then. Resolve it now, Robert replied. 20 minutes later, it was over. Sophie was reinstated. The Parkers were humbled. Outside, Robert placed a hand on my shoulder. You're a good mother, Eva. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Standing in the sunlight, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. Protected, loved, seen. Robert didn't just defend us that day. He reminded me that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up when the world turns against you. Sophie got her joy back, and I got my father back.